Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Vistatec Life Sciences in Focus podcast. Fascinating conversations with global life sciences experts. This is a space where we interview life sciences experts once a month, and I'm your host, Karen Tkaczyk. I'm excited to talk with today's guest, Alec McChesney, who is currently Director of Business Development at SCORR Marketing, the health science experts. Alec and I met at a conference earlier this year and immediately basically got talking, and we could talk for quite some time. So here we are today. Let's dive in. It's such a pleasure for me to have you here. So let's start by a little bit about your origin story. Tell us how you got where you are.
Yeah, Karen. Well, it's so exciting to officially be here and be recorded during this process, because I know you and I could talk for a couple of hours, and I'm glad that we're going to be able to record this and have, even 20, 30 minutes on record of our conversations. And I'm really excited about that, just based off, your thought processes around the realm of marketing in the life and health sciences, and then certainly kind of my philosophy in the same boat. And I think that's, it's kind of the segue that I always go into, for my origin story, if you will, which is really based in marketing and marketing strategy. So I started, really 7-8 years ago, as my journalism career came to an end and started to shift into this strategic marketing lens and understanding the role that marketing needs to play in business to business companies, and really the importance of that human to human connection, having the right content at the right audience, right channel, right time, all of those pieces. And really over the last handful of years, that led me to SCORR Marketing, that full service life science marketing agency, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But really, it's allowed me to go through every aspect of marketing, from content creation to branding, storytelling, to the execution on a day-to-day basis. And now in my role in business development, it's because I love having conversations with individuals like you, Karen, being at the shows, learning, what opportunities, what challenges we have in the life sciences, because I think that there is so much room for companies to grow in marketing in our space. And I'm really excited to talk a little bit more about that today too.
Yep, very much. Thank you. So do tell us a little bit more about SCORR Marketing then.
Yeah.
Niche
Absolutely.
in the life sciences.
Yeah. Purpose-driven, purpose-built for the life sciences. So we've been around for 21 years now. We set out to really be that unique entity as a marketing agency that only serves the life sciences. So, I always say that 99.7% of our clients are in this space. So we understand what it takes to be successful. We understand the conversations that you're having with your boards and with private equity. And if you're publicly traded versus a privately held organization, we understand that this is not a regular B2B. It's certainly not B2C. How you communicate with the scientific aspect and the original research that you have is really important. And at the other side is that we're full service. So, we call ourselves the health and life science marketing experts. You've got that life science industry focus and the importance of that. But then we also have the team of 65 plus dedicated marketing experts that are here to drive your marketing and your business forward. And to me, one of the big differentiators about our organization, and I think about specific companies within this space, is that marketing's job is to support revenue. And I think that if we called marketing revenue support, marketing would have a much different perspective in the life sciences. And I think at times it gets a bad rap. It's one of those things that is a nice to have. It's something that, it's a little cute and clever, frou-frou, we throw it in the corner. But at the end of the day, marketing's job is to support revenue growth. It's to support your business development, your commercial efforts. And if your agency's not doing that, or your internal team is not doing that, is not focused on it, you're not going to be successful. And so that's really where we pride ourselves on, is being that thought partner and industry partner to drive revenue forward, to drive your business forward as well.
Fabulous. So obviously there's a lot of overlap in what you do and what we do at Vistatec, right? Which is why we connected the way we did, I think, when we first met. So we handle multilingual Marcom's content for many of our clients. So let's talk about that, best practices perhaps, or what you see life sciences companies, and you can drill down into a niche within life sciences companies if you wish, because that's very broad. In terms of global marketing or multilingual content, what do you want to, any thoughts, any immediate thoughts?
Yeah, it's such a big and frankly both vague and really direct problem, right? And it's something that all marketing teams are having to deal with right now, whether you currently sell globally or not. The way that the world changed after the pandemic and the way that organizations and patient outcomes changed, whether you are on the clinical research side running a trial as a site or a sponsor, or you're on the manufacturing side and you're developing and you're working through peptide synthesis. Like, no matter what you're doing, the industry was changed forever. And how we typically talk about it is that the life science industry has no borders, and frankly neither should your marketing, right? And so when we think about this, I talk about it all the time, that a campaign that you run in Boston, frankly, should be different than the campaign that you run in San Diego, let alone if we talk about Boston to London to Melbourne, to all of these places all over the world. And so what does that mean? And I think, that's the question. And certainly in some of those elements, you talk about the multilingual, you talk about running campaigns in different languages, but also buying behaviors are different based off of where an individual lives. And so you have to have the culture pieces involved, but you also have to have, how are they going to make decisions? Are they going to be more reliant on trust and more of those human connections versus an ad that they might see and an influencer type of campaign? And so making sure that that's all embedded in your strategy, rather than just saying, we're going to run this campaign, we're going to copy and paste it, translate it, copy and paste it, translate it. That's not going to work, right? And that's what we see. That's what we see.
No, you're speaking my language. You're speaking my language, Alec.
And it's so frustrating, because as I say it, you kind of start to laugh, and this is a much simpler, if we bring this down, it's kind of like the idea of, if you have 4 services, let's say you're a CDMO and you have 4 different services that have 4 different audiences. You would not create a campaign and then run the same campaign with the same messaging on 4 different media outlets for the same, or for 4 distinct audiences. Why would we do that then, if we're targeting North America, if we're targeting EU, and then we're targeting Asia Pacific? Why would we do the same thing then, right? And that's where I get frustrated.
Hey, I mean, yes, we have the same conversations with our prospects and potential clients. We see the same problems, don't we? That you nailed the point about cultural insights, right? It's not just about the language. I mean, the language is one piece, and it's an important piece. And one of the things that we say a lot is, can't read, won't buy. That's particularly in B2C, right? Rather than B2B. But in B2C, can't read, won't buy. That's why your retail outlet needs to localize their website into the languages of whichever market they're trying to be in. B2B, it's slightly different, but the same principles vaguely kind of hold, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I am a broken record that in this space, especially, there has to be 3 phases of the buyer's journey. And this is not the technical awareness and consideration. They have to know you first, they have to like you second, and they have to trust you third. And so that philosophy of that can't read, won't buy is at the very beginning, that knowing. If they can't instantly, if they go to your website or they see an ad or there's a conversation, if they can't know what you do, it's going to be impossible for them to get to know you, get to like you, get to trust you. And so, I think a lot of those things that people and companies excel at in B2C, there are learnings that we could take and apply them to B2B, because again, it's human to human. We are building that relationship, and especially, in this field specifically, especially on the B2B side, when we're talking more about services or long-term contracts, the relationship's going to take 6, 8, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months in order to establish that presence and so many touch points and engagements. And so
Yep.
again, if we have an incorrect engagement or an incorrect touch point, it's kind of like starting over and starting from scratch. And there's really no need to do that when we can build in, kind of those safe havens, if you will, as part of those campaigns throughout.
Love it. Yes, absolutely. Love it. So, so many ways we could go here.
So many ways. You got me excited. It's my fault. I'm gonna run away
No.
from
We're
the
both
agenda.
excited. So, as our listeners here could tell, we like talking to each other about this kind of stuff. Well, I mean, let me say, let's touch on the regulatory piece for a moment, right?
Yeah.
So there are a number of regulatory complexities, lack of harmonization. That's a challenge when you're working in this field. That's a challenge for global,
Yeah.
right? Do you agree? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even if you take it a step back and remove the global aspect of this in terms of the ever changing industry and the new regulatory requirements that are coming down, and frankly, just the scientific nature of what organizations are doing, it's difficult. And I understand why people are hesitant to even do out of the box or creative marketing, because it does feel like we are in a certain box. And then when you add in the global nature of this, different campaigns that you're running, different messaging, the way that you present it is all going to have different regulatory requirements. And I even think about, at SCORR, one of the big things that we're focused on in 2025 is the accessibility aspect of marketing campaigns and websites. And I know, we didn't talk about this in our last conversation, and I know there's the great blog online, from your team and all of that. We talked a little bit about some of the challenges, but there are countries that are going to have way stricter rules, regulations, and laws on accessibility from a visual and messaging standpoint that don't even have to do with the scientifics, so there's
Absolutely
so many different boxes that you have to play in. And it's tough. It's tough, for lack of a better term.
In the USA, it's 508 compliance for websites, right? So that is going to be an alien concept for to many of our listeners, but it's about accessibility for users of your websites. And you're right, the EU is going to have its accessibility guidance. Japan will get into the picture, Canada or Australia will have their own setup. You're right. And the messaging may have to change according to these. Yeah.
And I think, I'm like, I got to cut you off because I'm so excited, but I understand why business leaders are hesitant, because, we even talk about there's a difference between scientific content and then there's marketing content. And of course, you have to have the science backed in terms of everything that we do. However, the marketing content is not meant to be written by a PhD individual. It's not meant to be written for the PhD individual. It's meant to be written for somebody that has 8 seconds of time, and can they grasp, what you do, why it matters, and why should I care as your potential buyer. And so again, I think a lot of times how you look at a marketing plan, and especially a messaging plan, it feels like almost a video game where there's just boxes everywhere, hopscotch, and you have to try to jump in and through those hoops for each of the campaigns that you're doing. And I think a lot of times that's where we get really safe messaging, and it's what leads to having the same message in every campaign, on every asset, and in every country, because you'd rather, essentially be rather safe than sorry, if that makes sense.
Right, because there's such a risk-averse world. We're in such a
Yes.
risk-averse world. So they end
Yeah.
up going safe. And that's why the marketing just doesn't captivate, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's too risky. Too risky.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's not what we're here to talk about today, because I'll
No.
talk about it for another 10 hours, but it's
Yeah.
how you lead to the sea of sameness, and so many companies saying the same
Yes.
thing over and over again. And then companies call and ask the question, why aren't we differentiated? Why aren't we different? Why aren't people calling us? And it's like, well, if you look at your messaging, it's the exact same across the board with your top competitors too.
So naturally segueing into personalized insight at scale. I've seen you talk about that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the opposite, obviously, of sea of
Yeah.
sameness. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I love this concept of personalized insight. And I think, 6, 7 years ago, even 2015, 2016, that concept of personalization came up. And let's be more focused on who we're doing our outreach to. And then about 2 years later, automation came really heavy. And what personalization meant then was that I just had your actual name in the email. It'd be like, hey, Karen. But what that led to was awful outreach and awful marketing. And one of the best sales, thought leaders in the space, who is the co-founder of an organization called Succession. His name's Harrison Wade. I have to give him credit, because he calls it the spam cannon. And
I follow
it's
Harrison.
true.
I agree. He's
Yes,
great. Yes.
he's fantastic, and he talks about it, and it's that bad personalization, and I get it every single day. I get an email or a LinkedIn message that mentions that I went to Missouri State University in Springfield, Missouri. Now, don't get me wrong, I had a great time in Springfield, met my wife in Springfield, but when you email me and say, oh, you lived in Springfield, it's a beautiful place, I've always wanted to go there, I know for a fact that that is a ChatGPT automated tool that is just polling where I went to school and the town. And so that is personalization. And to me, personalization is out the door. You can scale it really fast, and there's automation tools, but it's not going to make you successful. Personalized insight is something that is much harder to scale, but when you do it right, it can be successful. And it's kind of the blend of account-based marketing, understanding that we need to go after this specific niche audience in Boston, or this specific niche audience in England. And there's not thousands, there's maybe hundreds, but realistically, it's probably like, hey, there's 36 people that we really want to be in connection with. And whether you are doing that through some of the unique, tools that you could have, I think of a sales AI platform like Ample Market, or the old manual sales platform, yourself going and conducting the outreach and the research to say, okay, you work at Vistatec, I know what you might need SCORR for, and I'm going to build a personalized marketing and sales plan towards you. There's going to be custom landing pages as part of that. I'm going to talk specifically to you. Now, I'm just going to add this in, that when I say this, so many people are instantly afraid, because that sounded like a lot of work, and it sounded like a lot of investment and money. And it doesn't have to be. There are ways that you can create templates and then duplicate it while being pragmatic, and then having very targeted, paid media campaigns, paid social campaigns that are targeting that audience for a little bit of always on. But it's that personalized insight. It's the things that don't scale that are going to allow you to be more successful, especially when you're trying to break into a niche location. If you add, I'm working with a client that's added a site and a facility in England. So now we're going to try to do messaging around just that site within that radius. We're not going to just run a full scale
Right. You're going to niche
$500,000
down.
marketing campaign, right? We're going to be really specific. And so it's a really long-winded way to say that, like, automation and personalization, it's good, but it's going to hold you back. When I'd rather companies tell me, like, if I'm working with somebody, who are the 15 companies that you absolutely want to work with? Let's build a lookalike audience to get that to 30, and then let's build plans to go after them. And then everything else after that is always on, and you can have other campaigns, but let's be really specific with that personalized insight from a sales and marketing perspective.
Love it. And one of the things you mentioned along the way, one of the small pieces of that, those customized landing pages, I love those for an account-based marketing strategy. I've had success with those very much like that as part of a campaign.
A campaign. Well, and then that's what allows you to have the translation and the language and the messaging, the way that again, it goes back to the way that I would talk to a CEO in a video on a landing page is going to be different than the way that I talk to a director of marketing who has 7 team members, is different than I would talk to a director of marketing who's alone and wearing too many hats. And so that landing page, even though it's a template, is going to feature messaging specifically to them. And so if you think about, we've got 15 companies across the globe that we're going after, that landing page and the way we talk to that individual and when we talk to them is going to be different if they're in Rome versus then if they're in Boston. And so it goes back to that original question of the translation and the cultural aspects and how we approach that all can be included when we think about personalized insight, at a scalable level too. Yep.
That cultural competency plus subject matter insights plus tailored. Well, I mean, it takes work, right, to actually know what people need. There's no way what did you call the cannon thing? What was it called?
Spam cannon. Spam cannon. And that's what we want to avoid. If we can avoid spam cannon as much as possible, we're going to be more successful at the end of the day, right?
Yes, spray and pray is the other one, the older one.
Yes, spray and pray. Let's close our eyes and just, throw the darts. And listen, I also, I want to be cognizant that I understand, the pressure that teams are under and that you're doing all those things. But I promise that you could be more effective with $200,000 in this format versus $500,000 in the spray and pray spam cannon approach as well.
Yeah. Okay, so we should probably think about wrapping up because we ought to.
Because otherwise we'll keep talking
all day long. So what else would you like to share with our audience, Mr. McChesney?
Gosh, it's such a tough.
I know.
It's such a
I have
tough
to
question.
ask an open-ended one.
I completely understand it. For me, I think, I kind of go back to this combination of the personalized insight at scale with how we conduct ourselves, knowing that the industry, for lack of better terms again, has no borders. And so as we are building our marketing plans for 2025, making sure that we are not just making any blanket statements for our audiences and for our campaigns. And so I think drilling that next level deeper, a lot of teams have good overall messaging, but when you ask them, hey, how is that messaging reflected by this audience or by geo or by X, Y, and Z? They don't necessarily have that breakdown. And so an unbelievable way for marketing teams to kind of demand that clarity is for marketing, business development, and leadership to get into a room or have marketing own this and then ask for feedback. And it is to create that second level of messaging based off of your target audience. For some, that might be geo. For others, it might be based off of size of company. It might be based off of the individual that we're trying to sell to. But whatever that is, if you can take time over the next 2 months and say, okay, this is how our messaging should be different, then you should have different campaigns. You should have that messaging be included in that. The sales team should have those assets, and we should be setting them up for more success. And that, goes to trade shows, goes to anything else that you do. And it seems so simple. And frankly, it's not. It's going to be really hard. There's going to be arguments and there's going to be discussion points, but it is something that, it shouldn't be rocket science, for lack of better terms. Getting the smart minds on your team in the room, or hiring an organization like SCORR, shameless plug there if you need it. But being able to do that is going to make your marketing more effective in the immediate near future, but also in the long term, as we talk about compounding effects of getting your audience to know you, like you, and trust you. This is going to be a really important piece of that puzzle.
Well, I am so glad we did record a little bit of these conversations of ours. We've got it on the record. I hope that everyone listening is enjoying it as much as we do when we have these conversations. And please connect with us and ask us to talk more, because we can both talk about this for a very long time. So thank you, Alec, very much for your insights. And to our audience, this Life Sciences in Focus podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, other leading platforms, and on YouTube if you like to watch us rather than listen. Please make sure to tune in again next month for Vistatec Life Sciences in Focus, fascinating conversations with global life sciences experts. Thank you.